All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you'll please stand and join Dakota Mars Clark from Vineyard Avenue is going to lead the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In closed session, the board voted 4-0 to approve the reassignment of certificated employee K from a supervisory position to a classroom teaching position for the 2014-15 school year. And we have no expulsion actions tonight. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education, where our primary focus is the education of students in this district. During this meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information and voice their ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each item, there will be a time for you to have opportunity to speak to that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although not mandatory, we would encourage you to fill out a tan speaker card, and I see a number of you have done them, and you will be allowed to speak on that topic during communications from the public. If you wish to address a topic that is on the agenda, we encourage you to please fill in and turn in a blue speaker card. It is not mandatory to do so, but it helps us with our records. I will call your names in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes, unless otherwise noted. Y'all are looking very bright and eager tonight. That's good, because our meetings are televised, cable channel 28 on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Thank you for joining us this evening. And Madam Superintendent, are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Madam President, there are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. And we love to start our meetings with recognitions, help us remember what it's all about. And we have some recognitions tonight. Would you like to introduce the first one?
It's my pleasure. First, I'll ask our principal of Vineyard, and she's going to come up, Mrs. Cheryl Hauser. She will do the honors of a very special introduction tonight.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and members of the board. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to recognize one of our district's outstanding teachers. Sometimes you are fortunate enough to work with somebody who is not only indispensable to the basic functioning of the organization, but at the same time, they take initiative coupled with talent and hard work to push back the confines of the old paradigm and create new options whereby students can thrive. That person is Sharon Arnold. Sharon piloted and continues to facilitate the Edgenuity online instructional program at Vineyard. The virtual classroom uses animations, simulations, exploratory activities, and videos to engage students. Prior to this program, students' only option at the school was the traditional model of independent study, which includes weekly meetings with their teachers and take-home assignments. Now students can supplement the traditional format with a new way of learning. In addition, this past year, Sharon coordinated Smarter Balance Assessments training workshops with our teachers and students across all grade levels, and she facilitated the actual testing sessions. In the Adult Ed program, Sharon serves as the technology coordinator. She assists with testing ESL students, maintains 4 computer labs, teaches the online GED Academy classes, as well as classes that prepare students for the Microsoft Office Specialist Certification exams. As a testing center, we serve students from around the Bay Area and the Central Valley. Within our community, Sharon has taught numerous classes ranging from basic computer skills all the way up to highly specific computer programs. She has done this for our own Livermore School District, the Alameda County Workforce Investment Board, multiple departments within Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, Cornerstone Church, as well as companies such as PepsiCo and Uncle Credit Union. In many cases, she has had to develop new curriculum in order to meet the specific needs of these organizations. These various entities have approached her and sought out her expertise, which brings value and recognition not only to the adult ed program, but also to the Livermore School District, as we are seen as a viable and credible resource in the community at large. Thank you.
Mrs. Bowers, can you introduce the next recognition?
Certainly. I will actually ask Mrs. Cindy Alba, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, to do the formal honors of the introduction. We are about to meet and recognize an outstanding group of students who have been recognized once by an outside agency, and we wanted to make sure that we recognize them within our school district as well. Mrs. Alba?
Thank you, and this truly is a pleasure to introduce this outstanding group of students. Back on April 19th at Chabot College, the African American Regional Educational Alliance, in conjunction with Chabot College and the R.T. Fisher Educational Foundation, hosted the 10th Annual African American Student Achievement and Excellence Awards. Superintendent Bowers and I had the pleasure of attending that event, which was really incredible and very inspiring. The award is to encourage students to strive and achieve. And on that day, not only were students receiving the awards, but it was a college, because the theme of the day was creating a college-bound culture. So there were many booths giving families and students information that would help support their future in going to college and providing all kinds of information. So our district, we had 21 students who were recognized on that day receiving awards. This is for middle and high school students. There are 6 different categories. Academic excellence, academic potential and success, visual, graphic, and performing arts, resilient spiritual consciousness, cultural leadership, civic involvement, and then senior recognition. Once again, we're incredibly proud of all of these students, and so not only did they receive an award on that day, but we wanted to be able to present them with a certificate today. And so when I call your name, we have several of the students here. When I call your name, if you could come up, we have our Director of Special Ed who's helping me this evening, Marianne Freitas, who will be helping pass out awards. So I'm going to start with Allie Brown.
If we could, we'd like you all to line up behind the podium there, and that way we can have the viewing audience at home see you on TV.
Okay. Azaria Jackson. Kiera Hodge. Everett Powell. Thomas Earl Reeves III. Okay. And then are there any other students who in attendance who I didn't call your name? Okay, I would like to call the names of the students who aren't here because this is televised, and I do think we want to recognize them for the public. I'm going to put on my glasses, though. We have Quinn Smalling, Aliyah Robinson, DeAndre Hawkins, Devontae Hawkins, Cicely Tufan, Taylor Newman, Todd Olson, Tyler Olson, Ariel Samuels, Eva Sevilla, Jonathan O'Neill, Taylor Smith, Zyron Arnold Turner, Ariel Kenfack, Madeline Schaefer Staley, Nufi Pokem. I hope I said those okay. So anyway, can we have a big round of applause for all of these students? Okay. And we are incredibly proud of all of you. Can we have the parents stand up for a minute? Because I'd love to see the parents who help support these wonderful students. Thank you.
And actually, maybe the entire family. I saw some siblings in support. We met outside. So anyone who supports these students in their success, if their teachers are here, if their administrators are here, or their families, let's give everyone a round of applause.
And I just want to note, we have a very important person who joined us in the audience. We have Assistant City Manager Troy Brown. Troy, you want to wave for the folks? There you go. Thanks for joining us. Madam Superintendent, would you like to introduce the next recognition?
Sure, I would ask that Ms. Shelley Fields come up to the podium. Shelley Fields is the president of the Livermore Education Association, and she has served in that capacity during the entire time that I have been the superintendent, which is 4 years. And I think before possibly, but at least during the time that I've been superintendent, I've had the pleasure of working very closely with her. She has really developed into a very strong, articulate leader, and she is a great communicator. In her capacity as president, Shelley has been very instrumental into reframing the relationship and rebuilding and boosting and making it healthier between our bargaining unit and our district and even our other units. And for that, we are all grateful because we've seen the results. She's also really worked hard and succeeded in boosting the image of the Livermore Education Association throughout the community and the region, so that she has created positions for public relations. They have been present in Leadership Livermore. Members of her unit have had very high-profile roles in conferences up and down the state, whether it's Noah King at the QEIA, Quality Education Investment Act, or in other venues. The wonderful things that have happened in Livermore, Shelley has helped showcase at not just the local level, but the region and throughout the state. And for that, I'm sure every one of her members that she represents is grateful. In addition, with her elevating of the public image, they've even done some things that I think are very exciting, because sometimes if you only look at the public image of traditional unions, sometimes there's a negative connotation. And so she's managed to make sure that that is flipped by doing such things as even participating in the local downtown events and having events and booths at even our Halloween carnival, so that everybody gets to know the wonderful side of our teachers and how hard they work. She has probably attended as many board meetings as most of us here, and it's, you know, there's a reason why they're called board meetings. They're not always exciting, but I'm sorry. I'm part of it, so I can say that. But she sticks it out. She comes here. She raises the consciousness. She calls us on things if they're not correct. She makes sure her members have due process and understand their roles and their rights, and she also makes sure that we know those things. For what I'm personally and professionally most grateful for is her proactive approach to issues. She actually tries to give us a heads up, let us know if we've missed the boat. She is that liaison and conduit, so that instead of spending money on lawyers and arbitrations and things like that, we actually proactively get to work together the way we should as professionals, to listen to our folks and to make good things happen. And so I also want to commend her for her personal growth and professional growth. She doesn't just take her role here and assume that she knows it all. So she attends every state budget workshop along with others, and that's not a role that most unit members in most districts would take on. She has made it her mission to learn about restorative justice, to learn about any initiative that the district is taking on, whether it's instructional rounds, Love and Logic, or other programs, because she knows that then she can support her members. She's moving on to new roles and challenges, but wherever that takes her, she always has a place here, and we wish her well. She's left a very positive mark on her membership, and also on the long-term relationship with the district. For that, we're very grateful. Shelley. We actually have a plaque, and it says, "To Shelley Fields from the Livermore School District, thank you for your dedication to students and staff serving as LEA president."
Thank you. If I can take just a quick moment, I'll use this as my communication from the public, so I don't take extra time on the election night. When I began, I had this idea that together we are better, and I think even though we went through a few growing pains in the beginning, we focused on some improved communications and increased focus on developing ourselves as educational lifelong learners. And we have worked to improve our evaluation process and strengthen our support services to our teachers. And we've also advocated for additional resources for our classrooms. Because of the receptivity that we've had with both the site administrators and the district administration, we were able to do much more than we've seen any of the other associations in our region do. I think we are unique, and I think it's because of the leadership that we have here in Livermore that we've been able to accomplish what we have so far in spite of the most trying and difficult economic times that we've had. And we've managed to come out the other side, not perfectly, but if the state budget willing, we will be much better off in the long run. I do need to thank a few people in particular. My predecessor and kind of my mentor, Keith Pickering Walters. Without him for his advice and his continuing on as my bargaining chair, we would not be where we are. Jenny, my vice president and the new president to be, not only does she have superior organizational skills, but she is much more time formal and has a world of patience and has allowed me to be myself and kind of steers me in the right direction when I get off task or have a squirrel moment. My exec board and my rep council have been gracious, and they've shown immense flexibility and dedication, and overall, they're good sports. But I really do need to thank the people that we've worked with for the last 6 years. I was VP for 2 years. It's been a trying time, but it's been a really worthwhile trip, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And I'm looking forward to being at a school site with children again. They're a little bit more fun than adults. But not only have we together become better, but I think together we have become stronger and more unified as a district and a team. So thank you.
So for all the people that were here tonight for recognitions, we want to ask you to come forward for a picture. So we do have one further recognition for someone who is not here tonight, and I'm going to let each of my board members say a little something if they choose. About former board member Thomas McLaughlin, who resigned earlier in...
Yeah, so Tom served on the board recently, but he also served for a number of years earlier than that. So he spent quite a while on the board and gave a lot of good service to the board, and we really thank him for that. It's not everyone who's willing to step forward and take a major role in the school district and provide the guidance and support that he did. So he is retiring from the board, and we really want everyone to remember to thank him, and we wish him well.
My first conversation with Tom was at a grocery store where he cornered me after I had won my first election, and I listened to his wisdom for the next hour and a half in the vegetable aisle. He imparted a lot of good questions that I needed to answer, and he challenged me on that on the spot, be a better board member, and for that I'll always remember him. I think he is very dedicated, and being a teacher was dedicated to the cause of children and education. And Tom, thank you.
Yes, we want to commend Tom for his service and of his dedication for students. He was first and foremost a teacher of special education students in a district, and I don't remember which one right now, but he also was in the union as a teachers union in that district, and so he could see sort of the issues from both sides. The more you talked to him, the more you found out that he had a breadth of experience that you just can't imagine. He was born in Ireland, and his schooling in Ireland included becoming a chef. In Ireland, you have to separate and decide whether you're going to go to college or whether you're going to do a trade, and his trade was culinary arts, which we call it today. He came to the United States and he went to school and became a teacher. He also served in the Korean War. I don't know if you've ever been with him when he had his Korean War cap on, but I've been with him when he had his Korean War baseball hat on, and people would come up to him, just strangers, and said, thank you for serving. And so he was quite a special fellow, and he added much to the district.
Thank you, Mrs. White. I also think of Tom as a veteran, a Boy Scout leader, a sports coach, a person who didn't graduate from high school and went on and got a degree in college, and a person who always had the interests of kids first and foremost in his mind. I think that's how I will always think of Tom, and we wish him well, and we do have some things for his family, a plaque for his years of service, and a resolution that we could go ahead and vote on right now. So we've got resolution number 69-1314, commending board member Tom McLaughlin for his service to the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. And do I have someone who will?
I will second your motion.
Thank you very much. And we will call the roll.
Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. White?
Aye.
And President Runyon?
Aye. And so that is passed unanimously in recognition of Tom McLaughlin's many years of service to education and students. Okay, so that brings us to student board member reports, and surprisingly the students thought they'd rather go to their awards night than be here with us. I don't know how they could make that choice, but fortunately we have Marina Fontaine from Livermore High, who's going to be our board rep next year, and thought she could start by joining us this evening. So what can you tell us about Livermore High?
Runyon, Superintendent Bowers, and the Board of Trustees.
Hang on. Is the red light on your mic? There you go. Just lean in close.
I'm Marina Fontaine. Next year at Livermore High School, I will be the Associated Student Body Vice President and Attorney General. In sports news, Frankie Kurtstetter and Tyler Olson will be moving on to the state championships for track and field after placing in the top 3 at the League of Champions track and field meet. The softball team was very excited when they made it to the semifinals for the East Bay Athletic League. They had a great season. Dominic Foscolina was a finalist for the Baseball Sophomore of the Year award. In club news, we held a Cowboy Alley News Film Festival featuring the films our video production class produced last night at the Vine Cinema. It was a huge success. Yearbooks were also distributed this week. Our yearbook club did an amazing job showcasing all students from Livermore High School. In other news, our annual Powder Puff football game will be held this Friday night. All of the players and coaches have been working very hard to play a competitive game. Senior awards are being given out tonight. Many seniors are being recognized for their excellence and are very excited to receive the awards. The senior class had a great time at Disneyland Grad Night and are now very excited for graduation. Senior Ball is this Saturday at the Claremont Hotel in Berkeley. There was an unbelievable amount of tickets sold and everyone is excited to have a great night. In leadership news, our leadership class has been very busy with end-of-year activities. Next year's class will have their first leadership experience at the retreat on Thursday. There's a Spirit Week going on this week to get students excited about the Powder Puff football game. We're expecting a lot of participation and support. The seniors from our class were invited to help with the Leadership Awareness Day held at Christensen Middle School. We got very positive feedback and will be helping again next year. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to employee associations. I know we heard from Ms. Fields. Is anyone else here to speak? No. All right. And that brings us to communications from the public. And communications from the public is a time for the public to comment either verbally or in writing on any item that is not on the agenda. The board may listen to the comment and ask staff clarifying questions, but they will neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. And so I have a number of cards. If there are any other people that want to speak, you can turn a speaker card in over here. And I'm going to ask Dan Van Dusen first, and next up will be John Phillips. So you know who's coming up. And you have 3 minutes. We have a timer here. If you could please sit down and use the mic so that people at home can hear your comments.
All righty, is that better? Very good. I represent the Livermore Airport, and I want to commend one of the programs that you have there, which is called the Adult Transitional Program. That has been going on now. This is the 3rd year that's been happening. I've been close with the kids myself and the teachers and their aides, and I want to commend the work that they do, the teachers and the aides do at the airport, what they do. With that program, there's actually been some kids that actually been hired at the airport. One of them is through, back here is Andrew, right here, has been hired for aerial services, does groundwork for banner towing. Some of the other kids that have helped out at Attitude Aviation, at Tri-Valley Aviation, and even some of the tenants as a personal aircraft. And what they're doing is they're detailing aircraft. What they've been taught by Ms. Lum is the fact of the safety of the airport, not only being around propellers, airplanes, but how to touch an aircraft properly. And just want to commend the work that she's done here also. But especially I've enjoyed the kids. Kids have been involved with our, what we call our hot dog days on Thursdays. Just recently they were invited into the Bombers, which the Collins Foundation was just arrived last week, which is a great thrill for the kids to be in a B-17, B-24, B-51 and such. And again, I just want to comment on the safety aspect that she has taught these kids, as being around the aircraft. She as herself is a pilot, commercial pilot, and without having staff time personally with us, we've been able to watch the kids. I've gotten personally involved with kids at times, and I tell them, I say hi to them, I shake their hands, and I tell them a good job when they're done. So I just want to commend that program that it's been, I hope to see it continue, and continue with the safety that's been happening as of this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before the next speaker comes up, I'm going to ask staff if we can get one of the foam diffusers on that mic so we don't get so much. And John Phillips, if you'll come up. And the next will be Judy Sanchez after. That'll sound a little nicer now.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm John Phillips. I work at the Livermore Airport for Attitude Aviation. I'm the FAA designee for inspector there. I've dealt with the young students here that have been coming out and taking care of aircraft, learning detailing actions and learning the safety aspect of being around the airport and working on aircraft. They work on our aircraft 2 days a week usually. They come in, they clean the planes, and they polish them, they make them look good, and they interact and learn valuable life lessons, I think, in the fact that they come to us, or sent to us by their staff that is bringing them out. They introduce themselves to us. They ask us if there's any safety problems with the aircraft we're going to work. Then we take them out and introduce them to the aircraft, check the aircraft over for safety, and then they go through and check what we have taught them, what we just went through with them. Then they go through and do it. It's a very good program. It's been going on like 3 years. The staff is wonderful, and the students they just love it out at the airport. And I believe it's the only school activity that ever comes out to the airport. I mean, there might be volunteers for airport appreciation days and things like that, but I believe this is an excellent opportunity for the school district to keep this program going. I just really would hate to see it end. I think you guys have got a winner here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we've got Judy Sanchez, and then after that, I'll ask Linda Avia. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. And thank you, gentlemen, that just came up here, because my student was one of the ones that has had that opportunity this year to go to the airport. And I cannot tell you how much it has meant to him and to us. You know, I wasn't going to talk tonight, but then I came in and I saw this thing here, what Livermore Valley School District is all about. They want to get their kids to go out into the world and have the skills needed to contribute and to thrive. And under the transition program, the way it's been run this past year, this is my student's first time, Michael is his name, my student's first year, he has felt that he has contributed. He's gone to not only the airport, but he's also gone to the golf course as well. And he has thrived. Now, I don't know that the school board knows this, but the reason that these men are here and the reason our parents are here is because they are thinking about changing the transition program to a whole new model where they would not be. He goes to the airport twice a week, and he goes to the golf course twice a week. And he works 2 hours every time. How awesome is that for a child that has had autism and has been diagnosed autistic since he was 3 to be able to work at an airport and to feel such joy when he finishes his job, so that someone who doesn't usually spontaneously speak to me comes in and tells me what he's done in the day. They are thinking of changing this program that has benefited my son so much, to only working 1 to 2 days a week for an hour at a time. And I think the reason that the gentleman from the airport is here is because if Denise Lum does not run that program, with her background in the airport and her background in being a pilot, I don't think that they're going to be allowed to do that next year, because they feel so comfortable with her and how safe she is. I want you to understand, my interest is in my son. I understand yours is in the whole school district, and you maybe see the bigger picture. But my son, Michael, needs this program. This program has had glitches this year, and we've even met with the superintendent this year. And those glitches have not been, even though she was very cooperative, they have not been able to be worked out. But to work them out isn't to take this away from these kids. It is simply not to take this program away from my student. We have parents that will make noise. We have signed IEPs that we will follow. Our children, although special needs, deserve the same opportunity to contribute and to thrive in their education. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Linda Avia, and then after that, we've got Brenda, and it looks like Jim Gates. Brendan, I'm sorry.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me? I hope.
Yes.
My name is Linda Avila, and this is my daughter, Vanessa. We are trying to come into this district, and I was looking for a transition program for my daughter, and I always do my research prior. So I went on the internet, Googled transition programs in the Bay Area, and Granada was one of the first ones that came up. And first and foremost, I found these phenomenal write-ups on the Granada transition program run by Denise Lum. All the wonderful things that they were doing in the community. And I was so impressed. I showed my daughter and told her, look, we have to go and talk with this teacher. I'm going to call her up. I called her up immediately, and the conversation that I had, it impressed me so much when I spoke with her. She was so enthusiastic. She was so excited, and she had so much compassion and love for her students. I got off the phone, and then I immediately went ahead and made an appointment to go visit the classroom. Me and Vanessa went to go visit the classroom, and immediately my daughter was so impressed in myself as well. And then we sat down and spoke with her, and again, through speaking with her, the love and compassion that she showed that she had for her students was so overwhelming. So anyway, I'm sorry. She also made, when she met with Miss Lum, Vanessa automatically made a connection with her. And it's so important that a child and a student have a connection with their teacher. After we also left the classroom, Vanessa asked me, or she told me, Mom, I want to come to this transition program. And Vanessa has a hard time with schooling. She really struggles. And I said, why do you want to come to this class? She goes, because of Miss Lum. She goes, she makes it seem fun and exciting, and she can help me to learn. And I was also excited as a parent and how I could help my daughter to be successful. I want you to know you have a great teacher. And it's hard to find great teachers, especially ones that can relate to these kids. These kids already have issues going on, and why do you want to take away something that works? This works. She works. Denise Lum works for these kids, and these kids love and they trust her. The whole goal here is to get these kids to be as independent as they can be, and this transition program and style in which Denise Lum teaches is what makes this transition program successful. I understand that this is a voluntary program, and if it's voluntary and you want these kids to come, Denise Lum is the teacher that's going to make these kids come to this transition program. We now know that Denise Lum won't be teaching this in transition program, and I guess the question to you, board, is why? So ponder, think, do whatever you need to do, but as parents, we need an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got Brendan and Jim Gates, followed by Bonnie Gates.
My name is Brendan Lee Gates. I am 20 years old. I am a transitional program. I love working at Wente Daycare, Croce Elementary School, City Hall, Airport, and Alden Lane Nursery. I love my teacher, Denise Slotson Lum. I sell balloons at Granada High and put the money in the cashier and the pennies to donations. Our class started the balloon business ourselves.
Brenda. I'm his father. I was here for 11 years.
You know, if you could talk into the mic, then the people at home are also going to hear what you have to say.
I've been working here since from 1999, the Livermore School District, from 99 till 2010, I believe, during the summer school special ed music with all the kids in all the different schools they were at. And so I've enjoyed watching and seeing how the children and the teachers who work in special ed, the bonds that they have, they connect. It's more than the education, it's more than the curriculum, it's more than the syllabuses. There's really a connection between the student and the teacher that I've noticed in that kind of a field. With Brendan, when he comes home, he tells me all about his day, everything he's been doing, and the excitement of working in places and doing things I didn't know he'd be able to do, polishing the fork?
Forks and knives. Forks and knives.
Very good. He's better than me than this. And what are the other things that you do at the airport?
We polish and wax planes.
Wow. And he comes home and he's excited about it. And now all I'm hearing from, and my days are busy. I get home late at night. But what I've been hearing the last 6 months is some kind of confusion, or in my mind, as to why, I don't know, what do you call it? Why would you fix something that's not broke? And why would you try to change something that's working so well? And it seems to me like a lot of things are going in the direction that makes me scratch my head and go, but why is that happening? Why is that? There's a lot of whys, and I think some of the other people here can be able to enlighten you with some of what we believe are the whys. I'm just here with Brendan to tell you that what has been happening in the past has been great, and we were thankful for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask Bonnie Gates, and following Bonnie, we're going to have Lee, it looks like Amick.
Hi, we kind of went about this all backwards because we were hoping Lee would go first and present.
Oh, well.
That's okay. And not take more of your time saying the same things. I'm Brennan's mom, and I've been actively in the transitional program this year, helping out where I could. I stand today before you with the rest of the transitional parents to report to you.
You know, I don't think the mic is picking you up. If you could just get a little closer. Sorry.
That's okay. Stand before you with the rest of the transitional parents to report to you that we have some serious concerns of non-compliance issues that we have been trying to resolve throughout this year. I am hopeful that by coming here, it can provide us with the peace of mind in knowing that this doesn't just get swept under the carpet, but that a serious attempt to investigate these matters with ongoing and being corrected for the sake of the students is needed. It's important that you know that we have tried and been very vocal in regards to communicating our needs and our issues to the district. We have written several emails, had parent meetings. Some of us have tried to reconcile differences by multiple phone calls and even made appointments to be seen in person with those of supervisory positions or authority. We even agreed to participate in a meeting with Philomena, Marianne Freitas, Cindy Alba, and Kelly Bowers around 6 months ago. They asked us to do this rather than to go to the board with our problems. We were promised no program changes and no staffing changes. Neither of these were honored. Kelly Bowers shared at the meeting that Denise should be empowered to continue her fabulous program, and the rest of the concerns and red flags would be reviewed. To this date, the following same roadblocks remain, and I owe it to my son and his future to use this opportunity to come forward and get our voices heard. I will be providing a more lengthy letter, since there's no way I can go into detail in 3 minutes. However, what I do want to base it on now is that the transition program that Denise Watson-Lim envisioned and put into practice has been highly regarded, publicly praised, and recognized by our community members. She was the visionary whose program and inspiring ideas were based on principles and ideals set forth by the California Department of Education's regulations. This program that has been created by Denise and has marked success has been all but shut down by different interferences and roadblocks that were placed unfairly on the teacher and her class. We have dealt with improper placement of student X that had a negative impact on a class in such a way that other students were in fear of attending because of bullying and abusive behavior. And when student X was in attendance, due to his nonconformity with safety rules and insubordination to the control of the teachers, many, many weeks went by where going to work sites had to be canceled. It took just one person to cost the rest of the class weeks of lost opportunity of work. After this finally got resolved, we were informed the district had implemented a new protocol for field trip forms.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up because we're out of time, but we will take your written comments and review them.
Can I finish it?
Yeah, please sum up.
Okay. There is no the district imposition of special time-consuming difficult policies and forms, etc., are negatively impacting and effectively obstructing the provision of needed transitional services and training within our community. Learning how to live, work, recreate, and participate in the community is exactly what the transition programs are meant to provide. These policies and roadblocks have impeded the implementation of my son's IEP goals.
Thank you for your comments, and we'll take your written comments. Mrs. Gaylor, can you raise your hand? There you go. Okay. And then we've got Lee Amick, and following that page, it looks like Stephen.
Okay, so I was supposed to be first, but that's okay. I wanted to say good evening, and we thank you, the members of the board, for listening to our concerns tonight regarding the adult transition class at Granada High School. We have brought as our support of this program parents of kids in the class, our families, grandparents, friends, and some of the businesses that support our kids, the various companies at the Livermore Municipal Airport, Wente, Alden Lane Nursery, and some of the kids in Mrs. Lum's class, past and present. My name is Lee Amick. This is my daughter, Sean. She has been in Mrs. Lum's class all 3 years that she has been teaching it. This is Sean's last year in the program because she is aging out, but we wanted to share for our 3 minutes of time to hand out a packet of pictures of the kids working their job sites in the community, newspaper articles of how much our community supports our kids through this program, and some letters of support and thanks from parents and businesses. So we wanted to thank you very much for your time, and Sean is out.
Thanks. You can give them to Mrs. Gaylor. Page. And then following that, it'll be Madeline, and I'm sorry, I can't read, Sieglin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you've heard, we're very concerned with the change that's coming next year with the transition program. My son Parker has participated in the program this year and is very proud of it. When I hear him telling people about what he does all day at the airport, and to see the pride that he has, that he's learning skills that were beyond what he had envisioned that he could do. This program is possible through obviously some great people at the airport accepting our children there, and Denise Lum. She is a visionary. She's the person that has put this program together. We don't understand why all these roadblocks have been put into place this year. Lee Emick, the one that just spoke, her daughter was in it 2 years. There was no problems. Everything went really smoothly. This year, we've had roadblock after roadblock, and enough's enough. Now, they've removed Denise from the program and put another teacher into this position against our will. Why don't we have any say in this? We don't understand. My son is the second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I knew that at some point he'd be bullied, and I want him to be able to protect himself. I didn't know that he would be bullied by the school district. So we don't appreciate it. And when it comes to these kids, they need consistency. For the program to change next year, they're going to spend the first half of the year relearning how to adapt to this new program. The new program puts the kids in a workplace 1.5 hours to 2 hours per week. And it states in the thing that they will spend the rest of the time in classroom doing lifelike skills. That's not going to do it. You can hear from all these kids how much the importance of being on site, the pride that they have, the interaction that they have, not sitting in a classroom. That's not where they belong. They belong out in the community as a part of the community. My son Parker here is very prideful of his job at the airport. and I'd like him to say a few things about what he's learned at the airport and what he does each day.
Well, I practice, and I don't know everything about the airport. I know that there's a bunch of things you can't. I know the airport is secretive. Like there's so many rules, and it's so dangerous at the airport. If you don't do anything correctly, you can go and get stitches or get severely injured. So that's why Miss Watsalum and Dan or John tell us so that we don't get injured and so that we're safe why we work on the airport. And there is you have to have none of our aides or students have it. Denise Watsalum has a pass so that she can go in the airport because it's so private that not anyone can just go in the airport. It has to be someone who is a pilot or something to do with the pilot. There's towers that see everything that's 3 feet tall, and they can see everything around the airport 360 degrees. There is, I think, so many kinds of different airplanes. They're so expensive. We get to clean every one of them, and I think that's so cool.
All right, thank you. You've been out of time for quite a while now, so I'm going to ask Madeline.
Hi.
Hi. Speak right there in the mic, yeah. You might have to lift it up a little.
I got this. Tonight we started off our meeting with awards, and you heard about a teacher who challenged the standard, created a new curriculum, and is awarded for that. And I thank her. And you know what? The person that we're here, that you've heard so many people talk about, is Denise Lum, and she's doing just that. Denise has challenged the norm. She's raised the bar. And here we have a sign on our wall saying, building a bright future, and that is exactly what Denise is doing, as you've heard from the parents and her students. To the students, she's also a boss. She has the students out in the community getting real work experience. You heard from the airport. They work at Alden Lane. They work at preschool. And at the moment, the students are working about 2 hours a week. 2 hours a day. And I'd love to see that increase. I hear about the passion they have when they do their job. Why not give them more of that? Currently, there's talk of decreasing that amount to an hour. And I'd like to ask you, what can you get done in an hour? You have your students come, and if they're even there to talk to them on time because they're maybe not helping another customer, they explain what's going on. And then once they explain what's going on, they can finally get going, but then, who knows, hours up and they're already starting cleaning up. And as you can tell, each one of Denise's students, they have their own personalities, personal goals, and needs. Denise sits down with each one of her parents, of the parents of her students, and finds out what their needs are and what their goals are. She is able to balance each of the students' needs while teaching them as a whole. I've never seen a teacher so passionate about her students' futures. Denise is taking students with different challenges and providing experience and providing the education they need to leave this program and have a job. All of her students aging out of the program have real jobs and getting paid above minimum wage. What other teacher can you talk about that has that track record? I'm here asking for your support to not change the current program and give this program the flexibility that it needs to build a bright future for our students in this transitional program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I want to thank all the speakers and just remind you that it would be a violation of the Public Meetings Act, the Brown Act, for us to have a discussion at this time, but your comments were definitely heard, so thank you for coming forward. And
Ms. Runyon?
Yes.
I do think it would be appropriate for us to ask Mrs. Bowers to send a report and tell us the rest of the story.
Okay, you'd like to ask a question?
No, I'd like to have the four of us ask Mrs. Bowers to say what's going on. I mean, why was there felt to be a need? I mean, I don't want a public report. It's a private personnel issue, but I would like to know, the parents to know, that we've asked to hear the rest of the story.
All right.
that they may not know the rest of the story either, but it's okay for us to know the rest of the story.
Okay.
I have to agree.
Okay.
One of the things we strive for is to have this kind of participation. So I would like to see also a report generated the next month or whatever the time frame is as to why this kind of program cannot continue and why it can continue, and find a happy ground.
You're getting into discussion, so I'm going to cut you off, and I'm going to ask the superintendent at the board's direction to give us, the board, further information on this issue. And then we're going to move on to correspondence. And Mr. Ogie, I believe we have some correspondence tonight.
Yes, I do. The first one I have is from Ken Pritton, and I believe he's just asking for information, so I'd like staff to, he would like to be informed of the date, time, and location of all future oversight committee meetings for Measure M and or Measure G. So that one will be taken care of. And then also from the Alameda County Office of Education, addressed to Kate Runyon, President, Board of Education. Dear President Runyon, in accordance with the Education Code, Section 42-127, we have examined the second interim report of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District for fiscal year 2013-14, to determine if it complies with the criteria and standards adopted by the State Board of Education pursuant to the Education Code, Section 42-131. Based on our review and analysis, we are satisfied with the second interim report. The district's second interim report anticipates a deficit spending in the unrestricted general fund to be approximately $1.9 million for 2013-14. The district anticipates being able to maintain at least the required minimum level of reserve for economic uncertainties through 2015. Conclusion, while the LCFF has improved the fiscal condition for education in California, the economic environment has not fully recovered. State projections look encouraging, although a number of factors could change this outlook considerably. We continue to encourage all districts to retain a flexible multi-year strategy as we approach the new fiscal year. Sincerely, Sheila Jordan, Superintendent, Alameda County Office of Education. With that includes correspondence.
All right, so that concludes our correspondence, and I see it is now 8 o'clock, and the polls are closed, and we have a very important measure on the ballot tonight. So I'm going to call a 10-minute recess, and we will reconvene in open session in 10 minutes. And that's been a 10-minute break, so if you failed to go to the restroom, it's your own fault. And we're going to get started again, and the first item that we're going to be looking at is an information discussion item, the public hearing on the Local Control Accountability Program. Would you like to introduce this?
Certainly. I'll ask Mrs. Cindy Alba, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, to introduce the item prior to the opening of the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you very much, President Runyon, trustees, and Superintendent Bowers. This evening, we'll be having a public hearing about the Local Control Accountability Plan. This plan we had a board workshop on. I know we've talked about it at several meetings, but tonight is that first part about bringing it forward for the public hearing. Just a little bit of background information. The Local Control Accountability Plan came about as when the state funding changed for our schools to the local control funding formula. With this local control funding formula, the piece of accountability that came with it was the plan. And this plan is a 3-year plan. It's updated annually. It's intended to be not a complex document. It's intended to be simple, and we know that over time this document will be changing. It's important to know that this is not a budget document. We do have a public hearing on the budget after this. It's not a budget document, although it does have funding amounts in it for certain actions, but those numbers or funding dollar amounts cannot be added up in a meaningful way. And I'll talk a little bit more about what's in the plan. To develop the plan that was developed by by us in the district, but with input from a number of stakeholders. And specifically, the district was required to have a local control accountability plan advisory committee, and the board approved the makeup of that committee and the members of that committee, and we had representation of parents from all of our school sites. We also had representation from all of our bargaining units, students, and then we also, as part of the requirements, had parents representing foster youth, low socioeconomic students, English learners, African American and Hispanic, because those were our largest student populations. So we had our local control accountability plan advisory committee. Susan Kinder, our chief business official, and I met with them on a regular basis, explaining the process and then getting their input into what was critical to them for their students in our district. We also had a second committee, and this was a committee of parents of English learners. And again, the board designated our district English learner advisory committee to be that LCAP advisory committee. That was also a committee we met with on a regular basis to seek their input and comments. After getting their input and comments, we also then did present to them a draft, which is today in the board agenda for the public hearing. We presented a draft to them for their comments and questions that the superintendent then responded to, and those responses are up on our website. So the local control accountability plan has several different aspects to it. It has goals for our students, then it has actions to meet those goals, and it also has then amounts of budget designated to meet those actions. So I'm not going to go into all the details of the plan because we've done that in different meetings, and the plan is also up on our website. It is part of this agenda. But I will review the 3 goals, and those were to increase the percentage of students who have the skills and knowledge to graduate from high school, college, and or career ready. And this was truly what is aligned with our board goals, and also with was clear from all the parents what they wanted for their students. The second goal had to do with providing a clean, healthy, and engaging learning environment for all of our students so that they feel safe at school and they can achieve at the highest levels. And the third one was to enhance parent and community engagement and communication. And that was important to our committees, and that's also important to us as a district. Besides, so we had action steps to meet all these goals, then we had specific action steps for all students, and then we had to, one of the requirements is to have the action steps of how you're going to reach those goals for your low-income students, English learners, foster youth, and redesignated English learners, and our plan contains all those components. So tonight is the public hearing, and then this is sort of a diagram I know we've seen before, but kind of goes through that process. The public hearing tonight at our next board meeting, we'll be bringing this forward to you for approval. After that, it goes to the county for their approval, and then there's a process of back and forth if they have questions, and then finally to the California Department of Education. And so with that, I'd like to open the public hearing this evening for the board to take public comment regarding the local control accountability plan in compliance with California Ed Code.
Well, I think maybe I'd like to open the public hearing.
Sorry.
I'll open the public hearing, and would any member of the public like to comment? I don't see any member of the public coming forward. Would any board member like to comment? Mrs. White.
I saw quite a lot of support activities that you proposing for the English language learners and their families, but I didn't see very much for the low-income families. Are you making an assumption that they're the same families, or did I miss sections 3, 4, and 5 or something?
No, there are action items for each one of those goals for all of the, so that would be goal number 3, and there are action items for goal number 3. There is, remember that there are section 3A is for all students, so that would include all of those categories of students. And then if there was something more specific, we put it in the other categories for the English learners, for the low income, and for the foster youth and redesignated.
Okay.
So,
do we get the numbers of these students from the state, or do we check our own enrollment lists to find out how many English learners and low income and foster students we have?
So our all of it is input into our CalPAD system. So our low-income students are students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and that's the same process that we use for our determining Title I. Our English learners, it's same process. It's the home language survey, and then from there the students are assessed on the SELF, and that's how we follow the state guidelines on that. So yes, we are reporting that. For our foster youth, that's the one where eventually there will be an MOU between the counties who oversee foster youth and the school district to be able to formally exchange information. But right now we input it into the system, and Mr. Vernoy works with the county to sort of double check that. That's probably the one category I think there'll be more clarification down the line on how we define foster youth, and then redesignated English learners.
Well, and I know the state has made the determination that we're talking about unduplicated students.
Absolutely.
And I'm concerned with how complete the overlap is. I mean, how many students are English language learners who are not free and reduced lunch people, and how many English speakers are free and reduced lunch? I mean, how valid is their determination that we're not going to overlap? You see what I'm saying? I'm just curious. I mean, I
that we're
changed the state law, but
are you in terms of funding, in terms of the duplicate?
I mean, a student who is any one of those is part of the targeted group.
Right.
But there are certainly some students who live in poverty but speak English.
Absolutely.
And so how many of those are... I mean, I think the services we need to provide for kids would be different if they're English language learners than if they're poor. There's some overlap.
There's some overlap.
So I think we're getting shortchanged by not getting funds to provide both services to the children who are in both targeted groups.
Yeah. So that would have been
curious.
Yeah.
I mean, how shortchanged are we?
So I think a lot of people, I saw a lot of heads are nodding. A lot of people agree with that, with your supposition or your statement that we're getting shortchanged because it's very unique needs for different circumstances. But what we still could do, just so that we have that data, is we could show how many students are in each individual category, how many are in 2 or more, how many are because there could be there are students who are in all 4 categories, and so we can actually pull that data, and whether or not the state funds us that way is helpful to know.
No, I'm just curious. You know me, I want to know down here what's in the weeds. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
All right. Does another board member have a question or comment? All right. Then I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to move on. And the next item is the public hearing on the budget adoption. Would you like to introduce this item, Madam Superintendent?
It's my pleasure. I'll ask Mrs. Susan Kinder, our Chief Business Official, to give a brief introduction, and then we'll go ahead with the public hearing formality.
So good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers. So this is a little different for us. Normally we do our public hearing for the budget on the same night that you do the adoption, so we had to scramble and do our budget much earlier than we usually do, and so a lot of the information is still kind of a moving target. And so hopefully we can get our PowerPoint up.
Frozen.
I think Cindy is sabotaging me every time.
I'm thinking maybe we need a topic for discussion, like I wonder how our parcel tax is doing. Anybody have an update in the back?
Right now on my screen it's still showing 39% reported in.
No change.
70%, 70.4% yes. So if it stays that way, we'll be very happy.
It's not that any of us are distracted, but we have some very important stuff on the line here.
Well, okay. I'll start going off my PowerPoint.
Behind
So,
Karen.
this is a public hearing for the 2014-15 budget, and we did announce this in the newspaper in accordance with Education Code 42103. We have actually 13 different funds in our district. And tonight, and all 13 funds are in the board packet, and that's one of the reasons that it's so thick. But we're going to concentrate on the general fund tonight. And I'll just remind you that we have basically four versions of our budget over the year. That's the adopted budget, which will come to you at the end of this month. The revised budget, which is 45 days after the state adopts its budget. The first interim report, which is as of October 31st and goes to the board in December. And the second interim, which is as of January 31st and is presented to you in March. So those are the four main budgets. And then obviously we do budget updates. We try to do those monthly. Let's see if oh, there we go. No, that's the wrong one.
LCAP.
That's the wrong
That's
one.
LCAP.
We really are distracted tonight.
There we go.
All right. So I went through these slides. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the assumptions that we used for revenue for this proposed budget. We are using the calculator that is being presented to us from FCMAT, which is the Financial Crisis and Management Assistance Team. And they put this calculator together with a lot of different professionals and pros at this. And they're using the, you know what, this is not even the right, this is an old version of my PowerPoint, but I'll just go through it. So they're using the Department of Finance projections, which right now the cost of living adjustment or COLA for the current year is 0.85%, and then the gap, which I'll talk about in a minute, is to be funded at 28.05% for this current year. We are assuming that our enrollment will remain flat at 12,550, and our average daily attendance, which is the number that is used to calculate the local control funding formula, is 12,082.
Did you say that there's an error on this slide, or?
There's no error, but this is an old version. Okay. So your handout is a little bit updated. So I'll just add the differences.
Okay.
The multi-year projection assumes that the parcel tax will continue, and so that's obviously we're all on pins and needles tonight, hoping that
Waiting
will
for
pass.
the election results of
Yes.
the parcel tax renewal?
Oh, see, now the problem is I don't have the local control funding formula on this PowerPoint.
You know, is it possible that you could get the updated information? If we move on to some of the other items we have tonight and come back to you, could we get the proper? But let's get it right. So I want to move on, and we'll come back to this item. So why don't we move to consent? And does any member want to pull any of the items that are on consent? And if not,
I would like to comment on one item.
all right, Mr. Rogie.
Item G, approval of gifts to the district. Again, we'd like to thank the public for their gifts to various schools and organizations throughout the community, and we do appreciate it. It does help us out. So a big thank you from us.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rogie. And if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion on consent.
Madam President, I'll move that we approve consent items A through I.
L, I think
L.
you mean.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And that's a motion and a second. And if Mr. Rogie will call the roll.
Yes, Mrs. White.
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon.
Aye. And that brings us to the resolutions. Did any member want to comment on anything or pull any item?
We've already done 69.
Right.
For Mr. McLaughlin, we have. Thank you for pointing that out. So I'll entertain a motion on A, B, C, E, and F.
I'll move that we approve those.
A movement and a second by Mr. Rogie, and if you'll call the roll.
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Mrs. White.
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon.
Aye. And I'm looking to staff now. Are we prepared to go forward with the correct PowerPoint? Great. So we're going to go back to the public hearing on budget, and let's...
Okay.
There we go.
That was the missing slide. So this is basically, I was just going to go over how the local control funding formula is calculated. And what we do is we take our average daily attendance by grade level and then multiply it by the base grant. And you can see that the base grant changes based on grade level. So K3 is 7,011, 4-6 is 7,116, 7-8 is 7,328, and 9-12 is 8,491. So when we do that calculation, our total, and this is calculating the target, so I want to make that clear, it's 91,234,502. Then we add on a grade span augmentation, and that's just at grade levels K through 3 and 9 through 12. And that's an additional $3,556,737.
And does that include TK?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
I guess we should start our
Calling it
vocabulary
TK.
needs to be TK to 3. Yes. And then supplemental grant is for our unduplicated count, as Mrs. White had mentioned. It's not quite fair because they all have special needs, but our unduplicated count is 28.73%. Of our population, and so again we take those and times them by these amounts, and we get a supplemental grant of $5,449,048. And then if we were over 55% in our unduplicated, we would get a concentration grant, and so we do not have that. So that's zero.
Can you tell the members of the public what that would be if we had that? You know the percentage off the top of your head?
50% of the base grant.
Right.
So.
Quite a lot.
Yes, it is. And then there are add-ons, which are for our transportation and targeted instructional grant. So those are kind of outside of the base, but they're added on to get your target. So our target for 2014-15 is $101,459,202. So that would be nice if we would get that amount, but what they do then is take that amount and subtract our 13-14 funding, which was $78,452,353, and that difference is what they call the gap. And so if you remember earlier, I was saying that the proposal to fund the gap is at 28.05%. So the amount that we should be receiving is $6,453,421. And so our total funding for the LCFF for 14-15 would be $84,905,774. So on the expenditure side, the assumptions we used is that the class sizes and staffing would remain the same as they were in 13-14. We have included all the items that were in the local control accountability plan. So remember everything in the local control accountability plan is in LCFF, but not everything in LCFF is in the plan. We continue to do our maintenance of effort for both the ROP, Regional Occupation Program, and adult education. And this is the last year that we're required to do that maintenance of effort. So from next year, it'll depend on what they decide in the state budget, or it'll be local control. And that means you'll make the decision. And we have now included the curveball, like when I presented last board meeting, the big change and the May revise was the contribution, employer contribution to the California state retirement system. And so that made a big difference in our bottom line.
And that does not represent any new money. That's a representation of an expense that we would have in terms of.
It's a new expense, correct.
Right,
There was
it's a
no
new
new
expense.
revenue.
It's not a new money allocation. I just want everyone to be clear that even though you've got it listed with all of the wonderful additions we have, that one is an expense and no new money comes with that.
Right, these are the expenditure assumptions. So yes, that was a new expense and not any additional revenue. So the STRS curveball, as we're calling it, is a big deal, and it is just a proposal at this point. But I just wanted to put this chart up to just show the magnitude of it, because what they're proposing is that in 14-15 we would pay 9.5%, which in 13-14 we were paying 8.25%. So the difference is $626,000, or over $626,000 for us just in 14-15. And then it escalates up. So by 2021, we would be paying 19.1% for the STRS. And that would be going from 4.2 million in 13-14 up to 10.3 million in 2021. And so I think it's a little unrealistic unless they are planning on giving us a lot more revenue. So we did have to include that assumption in our report, so I just want to warn you that that is in there. So our total general fund budget for 14-15, we're estimating that our beginning balance will be $3,487,963. We're projecting revenues of $104,906,980, expenditures of $104,989,851, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $3,405,092. And of that ending fund balance, we have $50,000 in revolving cash, $150 in our stores inventory in the warehouse. Our 3% reserve would be $3,149,696, leaving us with an undesignated amount of $55,396. And when we look at our multi-year projection, when we printed the board report at that time, our multi-year projection was showing that we would be deficit spending about $82,000 in the 14-15 year. But our outer years, 15-16, we would be in a surplus of $3 million, a little over $3 million, and then 16-17, a little over $4 million. But as I said, this is a moving target. And Friday afternoon, we got some new numbers from the Department of Finance. So it was obviously after the agenda printed, but I just wanted to show you what it did to our multi-year projection. It did reduce our outer years. The 15-16 and the 16-17 year did go down. So our surplus would be about 2.5 million and then almost 3.3 million. But again, it is a moving target. Now the good news is the Assembly and the Senate have come up with their budgets, and they are using the projections that were done by the Legislative Analyst Office, which has a much higher proposed revenue for the state. So you can see there on the left, the governor's budget is he's putting everything into LCFF basically, and then I'm showing you the differences that the other groups are proposing in their budgets. Mm-hmm. So the Assembly is proposing more money in LCFF instead of 4.4 billion. So this is in millions, by the way. They're proposing 4.6 billion for LCFF. They're also proposing that he put about 1.25 billion into Common Core. And the Senate also, you can see, they want a lot more in LCFF, 4.8 billion, and they are also saying that there should be about 550 million put towards Common Core. And the Assembly would like to see money towards the ROP, 384 million. So basically pulling it back out as a categorical is what I think they're proposing. The Senate is proposing $300 million towards career tech pathways. The Assembly is proposing $205 million towards preschool. And then both the Assembly and Senate are proposing $313 million towards the pay down of mandates. And that would be good for us because that does, although it's one-time money, it would help us with our budget rather than just our cash flow, because that's also part of the wall of debt.
And if I could just interject, because both of those appear to be better for a school district, particularly ours, one of the things that many of us have done is, I mean, for instance, I've taken this chart, I've sent our STRS predictions, how that would affect us. I've sent the actual charts to our current legislators and other folks. I've asked AXA to start to address these things because there's going to be a lot of wrangling around these three proposals. And whether it's CSBA or CTA or LEA or any acronym that you want to pick, it would be nice to have folks at least express their voice and opinion about one of these things, because there's a very small window of time where any of this could change.
Yeah, so you can see that there's 2.2 to almost 3 billion more than what the governor's proposing in his budget. Now, what happens is the legislature has until June 15th to come up with a budget using all these different, trying to consolidate all these things together. And if they don't do it by June 15th, they don't get paid, so I have a feeling they will have it done. And then the governor will take that, and then he can either agree with it or he can do line item vetoes. And so that's just something that we'll have to wait and see. So in the meantime, our next steps is tonight we're holding a public hearing, and then we are planning on having a board workshop next week. And then the budget will be adjusted as needed. Hopefully we won't need to adjust for our parcel tax, but it will be in there. And that anything else that may change, hopefully we'll get better news from the state, and then we could put that into our budget that we'll present on June 24th for you to adopt, so that you'll get your mandate of having a budget in place by July 1st. And then once the state adopts their budget, then we have 45 days to submit a revision, as I had mentioned before. And then we would use current information from the state, we would use updated staffing and enrollment, and any other additions that we would need to put in there. So our recommendations is to open the public hearing.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing, and would any member of the public like to comment? Mr. Pickering Walters. Good evening.
Thank you, board members and everyone else. My name is Keith Pickering Walters. I'm the bargaining chair for the Livermore Education Association, and Chris Manchak's not here tonight. I'm assuming he's at senior awards or something. And we've been bargaining wonderfully, doing our regular strategy that we've been doing. And we were planning on meeting again on the 9th, which is next Monday. And obviously with the unknowns going on, there really was no way that we could actually finalize anything. So just know that negotiations are on hold right now until the state budget actually comes out and we can analyze it and figure out exactly what's going on. So everything's just kind of in a holding pattern right now, and we're kind of tentatively watching. So, about it.
Thank you. Any other member of the public want to comment? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask, does a board member want to comment? Dr. Dunlop.
I'd like to comment, and I'm really pleased to see the Assembly and the Senate stepping up and making alternate proposals here, because if you look at their proposal, that's like a 3% increase in funding to us, and that might offset some of the other problems they're throwing at us, like the funding of the pension. So I think with still, the election out on Measure G, with what will happen in the Senate and the Assembly, we could end up with a workable year, and maybe even a year where we're maybe a little better than just holding even. The other thing I was really pleased to see is that our deficit spending is now down under $100,000 from $2 million and $3 million a year. So that's also a very, very big step forward, I think, in terms of our budget picture looking much improved. Unfortunately, there are a lot of issues that are still being worked, and we hope that they are resolved in a way that's beneficial to us. But, until everything is settled, I don't know that we can either be happy or unhappy. But I am very pleased to see the Assembly and the Senate enter with the idea that education needs more funding. Thank you.
Mrs. White?
Well, I just have too many questions about how the LCAP and the LC and the budget interact. I think I need to sit down with Susan and whoever else wants. I'm going to add. I'm just curious. I don't understand it, and I don't like to not understand. So maybe we can make some. And I hope we can do it before the workshop, so that I will be able to understand the workshop better.
Okay. Last board meeting, I was stunned. Really, there's really no other word for it. The proposal that we got from the governor was stunning, and what I forgot at that meeting is the game that gets played behind the scenes, and I think it's over threaten and then under deliver, and the typical cycle that we go through is they tell us we're going to get cuts, and they're extremely severe. They'll tell us we're going to get 10% cuts, and then when the cuts finally arrive, we got a 7% cut. And you feel a sense of relief that you only got a 7% cut. And so when they tell you you're going to get a 10% cut, you have to go in your mind, it's going to be less than that. They're just trying to make 7% look better. And I'm hoping that that's what's going on right now with the governor. I mean, it's important that we have some kind of sanity basis, but Prop 98 still is in force and applies, and that means that the schools are entitled to a certain percentage of the total revenue in the state, and it's looking a lot more reasonable with the Assembly and the Senate, although I've got to say these initiatives to include a new grade level, preschool, I think is crazy, because the state is still not making good on the money that's owed for the existing grade levels that we're doing. Telling us to take on another grade level without funding the existing grade levels adequately to do the job makes no sense to me. It's not that I'm against preschool, but I'm against a new unfunded grade level taking away from the kids that are in school now. So for all the people that are writing and telling me to write to the legislature and support preschool, it's not going to happen, because first I want 100% funding for our existing students. And, maybe the compromise that came at the end to give so much more money to students when you have a large aggregation of students in the categories that's being targeted, to me it's unfair. Students with needs are students with needs. And there are some students that are just harder to educate. And saying that, oh, you have more of them, and therefore not only do you get the same amount as these people get for their hard to educate kids, but we're going to give you 50% more just because we like you better. I thought we got away from that. Kids are kids. And it really makes me frustrated. But I'm hoping that some of these things are really just the game that's being played behind the scenes. I hope so. And I await the people in Sacramento to do the jobs that they've been elected to do, and I hope they take all the students into account. So, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to comment on the board workshop. So what that is so I do think it'd be a good idea if you have LCAP questions or LCFF questions to meet either with Cindy and or Susan about that ahead of time, because the board workshop is our opportunity for the board to have a study session with cabinet, and it's still open to the public, where we are going to be setting kind of core values and priorities going forward for the many different needs, because we do anticipate that the budget is going to incrementally creep up, and we want to be very thoughtful and smart and strategic about where we put funds going forward in order to keep all the great things we have going and even get better. So that's what that workshop is for, and the date has been set, and it'll be in Conference Room C, and folks are welcome to come to that as well.
Well, I was just going to add, Mr. Dunlop had mentioned that we're only 82,000 deficit. If we hadn't gotten the curveball in May, we would have had a positive for a change, but it didn't happen.
Let's hope that that curveball is a threat and trying to make us feel relief when we find out what the number really is. And we've already taken care of the consent items. Item 10. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Here we go.
So we'll
Discussion
ask-
action item, board policy. They're
Mr.
so, yeah, interesting that I forgot that one.
Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, will present for a second reading a board policy.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board. Tonight we present a board policy from Series 1000 for second and final reading. Our first posting on May 12th, our first reading May 20th, our second posting was May 21st, and then our hopefully second and final reading tonight. It is board policy 1312.3, which is our uniform complaint procedures. Uniform complaint procedures defines the district obligation to investigate complaints. And we're taking direction from the state, and we are proposing suggested changes to the policy to include local control funding formula implementation process. And so we are inserting implementation of the local control funding formula into the state and federal laws that is governed by this policy, along with some format changes that were suggested.
Can tell by the laughing where those came from.
The superintendent's recommendation is to approve the second and final reading of the proposed revised board policy from Series 1000.
Thank you. And would any member of the public like to comment? Okay. And, oh, Dr. Dunlop, you'd like to comment?
I have comments, and since this is on the uniform complaint policy, I want to tell you that I have no complaints at all with the current format and the spelling and the wording. It's absolutely perfect. Thank you very much.
Uniformly.
Uniform.
Great.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
Madam President, I will move that we approve board policy series regulations from Series 1000.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. And if Mr. Ruggie will call the roll?
Mrs. White?
Aye.
President Runyon?
Aye.
Myself? Aye. Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
And I'm going to deviate a little bit from the agenda because I see that we've got a member of our election committee, Measure G. Did you have a comment that you'd like to make under public comment? Thank you, Mrs. Balke.
So we just finished, chair is slippery. We just finished and wrapped up the last round of calls for Measure G. First and foremost, we'd like to thank everybody who participated and contributed to the campaign. It was a very enjoyable experience, and everyone worked hard on the behalf of Livermore students. The initial results are in for the polls. We have 39 precincts that have reported, and we have currently a 70% yes approval rating. So our consultants said that the rating will likely not decrease, only increase. So early results are very positive. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We appreciate all your efforts. You've made it a lot of fun. Thanks. Okay, so that brings us now, I think we've completed everything up to board member reports and requests. And Mrs. White, would you like to go first?
I'm just glad May is over. I took delight in all the activities we all participated in, but it's nice to calm down just a little bit before we have graduations. Thanks.
Dr. Dunlop?
Well, again, I'd like to thank all of the staff because May and the rest of the beginning of June are going to be very, let's say it's time consuming. And we really do appreciate all of the effort that goes into all of the activities, the extra activities that happen near the end of school. So, again, thank you very much to the staff and all of the members of the community who participate and help with all of those activities.
Mr. Rogi.
Yes, of all the activities that I've been to the last couple of weeks, the most enjoyable one was the Special Olympics that I attended for the elementary schools last Thursday. Granada had their marching band as an entrance, and they did a flag arch where all the students ran through it. The students were really very jazzed about this whole thing, as were their aides, the parents, and everybody that showed up. I didn't see any negativity at all out there on the field. It was just sportsmanship and a lot of fun. So that really was my highlight of my week, my month, actually. And for the rest of that, we'll just go on.
Well, I tell you, I'm so exhausted, I don't know if I can say anymore, but we are encouraged by the preliminary results, and we really thank the community for their ongoing support for education. And the educators that we have in the back of the room, you make all the difference. If you weren't doing the great job that you do, we wouldn't get the community support. So I'm optimistic, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent for her final words.
And I'm going to make it briefer than normal because I'm a little bit distracted here. But I would like to thank everybody for their support and for attending all of the many events. And many of the board members also went to so many events, but it's still not over. We have our promotions and our graduations coming, and that's a huge milestone for our students as they end their careers with us or they transition to the next level. So I know many of you will be at the different events, and it's very exciting to think of how many students will be going to a new level. I'm even invited to a few TK graduation ceremonies or something, which the parents are so excited. I can't imagine if they're putting all this effort into TK, I can't imagine what they will do when their students actually graduate from high school. But we are looking forward to an incredible celebration of our students who are graduating from the class of 2014. So thanks again. And when I come back, next time around, we'll give more details about all the events. But I think Measure G is on my mind right now.
With that, we're adjourned at 8:53.